Assalamu alaikum, let's explore this Islamic topic together. Hey, so, you wanted to know about Islamic mysticism and Poe? It's a fascinating topic, honestly. It's not just some dusty old corner of history. It's a vibrant, living tradition that's deeply intertwined with the heart of Islam. Think about it. Islam, at its core, is about striving for closeness to God. Right? But sometimes, the formal rituals and the prescribed prayers, as beautiful as they are, aren't quite enough to capture that yearning, that intense, personal connection. That's where Sufism comes in. Sufism is basically Islamic mysticism. It's a whole branch of Islamic thought that is on the inner, spiritual journey towards God. Sufis, those who practice Sufism, believe that experiencing God isn't just about following rules, but about transforming your entire being, your heart and soul. It's about a direct, personal relationship with the divine. And Poe became, and remains, their primary vehicle for expressing this intensely personal experience. Imagine to describe something so profound, so beyond words, as your direct encounter with the divine. Poe, with its metaphors, its imagery, its rhythm, becomes the perfect language. Think about it historically. The early Islamic period, we're talking the centuries after the Prophet Muhammad, was a period of tremendous intellectual and cultural flourishing. Islamic scholars were translating ancient Greek, developing groundbreaking mathematics, and creating some of the most beautiful art and architecture the world has ever seen. Poe was woven into the fabric of daily life, a powerful means of expressing everything from love and loss to religious devotion. Sufis adopted Poe as their own, not just as a way to express themselves, but as a path to understanding God. They used poetic metaphors to describe the ineffable, the divine presence, the ecstasy of union with God, the struggles of the spiritual journey. Think of it as a spiritual ladder, built with words, leading towards the divine. Some of the most famous Sufi poets used symbolism extensively. They'd talk about the beloved, a metaphorical term for God, and describe their longing for union with this beloved using imagery drawn from the natural world. The nightingale's song yearning for the rose, the thirsty traveler searching for an oasis, the moth drawn to the flame. These weren't just pretty words. They were powerful expressions of their spiritual quest. Take Rumi, for example. He's probably the most well-known Sufi poet in the West, and for good reason. His Poe is breathtakingly beautiful, full of passion, longing, and ultimately, a profound joy found in surrendering to God's will. He didn't just write about his spiritual journey, he lived it, and his Poe radiates that authenticity. His poems are filled with paradoxes and riddles, designed to push the reader to contemplate the deeper meaning beyond the surface. Or consider Hafiz, another incredibly influential Sufi poet. His poems are often playful, even humorous, yet they also grapple with profound spiritual truths. He used simple language, but his verses were bursting with spiritual insight, offering a glimpse into the mystical dance between the human soul and the divine. Reading Hafiz feels like a conversation, a playful invitation into the heart of Sufism. These poets weren't just writing for themselves. They were creating a shared experience. Their Poe created a community, a space where others could share in their spiritual journey, relate to their struggles, and find solace in their ecstatic moments. The poems acted as a guide, offering wisdom and comfort to those seeking a deeper connection with God. And it's not just the poets themselves. Many Sufi orders, these were like spiritual schools or fraternities, developed their own unique poetic traditions. using specific styles and imagery to convey their understanding of Sufism. These poems weren't just meant to be read. They were meant to be chanted, sung, recited in gatherings, becoming a crucial part of Sufi rituals and practices. The impact of Sufi poetry extends far beyond the confines of religious practice. It has influenced literature, art, and music across cultures and centuries. You'll find echoes of Sufi imagery and themes in literature from the East and West, from the poem of the Persian masters to the works of contemporary writers exploring spirituality. So, Islamic mysticism in Poe isn't just about ancient and historical figures. It's a living tradition, a vibrant expression of humanity's deep-seated longing for the divine. It's a testament to the power of Poe to convey the inexpressible, to bridge the gap between the human and the divine, and to offer comfort and wisdom to those who seek it. It's a beautiful, compelling journey, and I hope you're inspired to explore it further. Hey, so, you want to know about Islamic mysticism in Poe? It's a fascinating story, like peeling back layers of an ancient, intricately woven carpet. It all began, really, with the Quran itself. Think about it, the Quran isn't just a set of rules, it's incredibly beautiful, lyrical prose. It's Poe, in a way. It speaks to the soul, evokes strong emotions, and invites deep reflection. That inherent beauty, that passionate connection with the divine expressed through words, that's the seed from which everything else grew. Imagine the early Muslim community, brimming with faith and a powerful sense of connection to God. They weren't just reciting the Quran, they were living it. Their prayers, their conversations, even their everyday lives were infused with a deep spiritual longing. This wasn't just about following rules. It was about a personal, intimate relationship with the divine. That intense, personal relationship is the heart of Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam. Now, picture these early Sufis. They weren't necessarily scholars in the way we might think of scholars today. Many were simple folk, merchants, laborers, people from all walks of life. But they had this incredible thirst for a deeper understanding of God. A more direct experience of the divine than what could be found just in the study of religious essays. They felt a pull toward something beyond the rituals and the everyday. They sought a union with God, a state of being known as fana, annihilation of the self in the divine. And how did they express this yearning? This intense spiritual journey? Through Poe. Poe became their language of the soul. It was a way to articulate the inexpressible, to capture the fleeting moments of divine grace, the intense joy and sorrow of their spiritual quest. It's like they were ink to bottle lightning in words, the raw, untamed energy of their relationship with God. Some of the earliest Sufi poets used metaphors drawn from their everyday lives. Imagine a desert nomad describing the longing for God as the thirst for water in the scorching sun. Or a weaver comparing the intricate threads of existence to the interconnectedness of creation. Their Poe wasn't just abstract philosophical musings. It was grounded in the reality of their lives, making it relatable and profoundly moving. One of the key things to remember is that these weren't just poems meant to be read silently. They were often sung, chanted, or recited aloud in gatherings, creating a powerful communal experience. These gatherings, known as sama, often involve music and ecstatic dancing. Think of it as a kind of spiritual concert, a collective journey toward the divine. It was a way to experience God not just intellectually, but through the senses, the body, and the heart. As Sufism spread across the Islamic world, different schools and orders developed, each with their own unique style and emphasis. But the common thread was always this deep personal devotion, this intense longing for union with God. And the use of Poe is a means of expressing that yearning. Think of Rumi, for example, whose Poe is still incredibly popular today, centuries later. His poems are filled with both ecstatic joy and profound sadness, reflecting the roller coaster of the spiritual journey. He speaks of love, both the love of God and the love between humans, as a path towards understanding the divine. Another important aspect is the development of Sufi literary genres. We see things like *qasida*, which are long, elaborate odes often praising God or a spiritual guide. Ghazal, which are shorter, more personal poems often about love, longing, and separation. And *rubaiyat*, short 4-line poems that pack an emotional punch. These forms weren't invented by Sufis, but they were adopted and adapted to express their unique spiritual experiences. The beauty of this early Islamic mystical poem is its accessibility. While grounded in a specific religious canon, the themes of love, longing, loss, and the search for meaning resonate with people of all backgrounds. The struggle to find one's place in the universe, the yearning for connection, the pain of separation, these are universal human experiences that transcend religious boundaries. So, the beginning of Islamic mysticism and Poe wasn't a single event, but a gradual unfolding, a blossoming of spiritual longing expressed through the most beautiful of languages. Poe. It's a story of intense personal devotion, communal experiences, and the powerful ability of words to express the inexpressible, to connect us to something larger than ourselves. And it's a story that continues to resonate with us today, reminding us of the enduring power of faith, love, and the human search for meaning. It's something that really stays with you, you know? It's deeply moving. Hey, so we've talked a bit about the early days of Islamic mysticism. Right? The basics, the foundation, Sufism taking root, those early poets hinting at the divine in their work. But things get really interesting in the middle chapters. We're talking a period of intense spiritual exploration, massive social impact, and some absolutely breathtaking Poe. Buckle up, because it's a wild ride. Think of it like this: the early days were the seed. Now, we're seeing a blossoming, a flowering of different schools of thought within Sufism itself. You started to get these distinct orders, brotherhoods, if you will, each with their own unique approach to reaching God. Some were incredibly strict, on intense asceticism, almost monastic lifestyles, dedicated to prayer, fasting, and rigorous self-discipline. Others were a bit more open, emphasizing love and compassion as pathways to the divine. Imagine the sheer diversity. You had influential figures like Al-Ghazali, a towering figure who grappled with the tension between reason and faith, a deeply intellectual approach to Sufism. He wrote extensively about the inner journey, the struggle to purify the heart and achieve spiritual enlightenment. His writings aren't just dry theological treatises, though. They're filled with personal anecdotes, self-reflection, and a real sense of the human struggle to connect with the divine. It's incredibly relatable, even today. And then you have the poets. Oh, the poets. They weren't just writing pretty verses. They were using language as a tool for spiritual expression. The Poe of this era reflects the core tenets of Sufism: the longing for union with God, fana, the experience of divine love, ishq, and the journey through the trials and tribulations of spiritual growth. It's often deeply personal, intensely emotional, and sometimes even cryptic, reflecting the mystical experiences these poets were aimed to convey. Think of Rumi, for example. He's arguably the most famous Sufi poet, and for good reason. His poem is incredibly accessible, brimming with metaphors of love, longing, and the spinning dervishes, a visual representation of the soul's yearning for God. Reading his poem feels like being drawn into a whirlwind of emotion. A passionate dance between the human heart and the divine. He didn't shy away from using everyday language, making his profound spiritual insights accessible to a wide audience. But Rumi wasn't alone. Other poets, like Hafiz, used their art to explore the complexities of the Sufi path. Their poem is often infused with a sense of paradox and irony, reflecting the subtle and often contradictory nature of spiritual experience. It's a poem that challenges the reader, that makes you question your own assumptions about faith and the nature of reality. Now, this wasn't always a smooth journey. The blossoming of Sufism also led to some internal debates and even conflicts. Some within the wider Muslim world viewed certain Sufi practices with suspicion, questioning their orthodoxy. There were discussions about the nature of miracles, the role of saints, and the legitimacy of various Sufi orders. These debates often played out in the poem and theological writings of the time, reflecting the evolving understanding of Islam itself. It's important to remember that this period wasn't just about intellectual pursuits and intense spiritual practice. It was also a time of cultural flourishing. Sufi monasteries, khanaqahs, became centers of learning and community, attracting scholars, artists, and musicians from all walks of life. They fostered a culture of intellectual exchange and artistic expression, contributing significantly to the intellectual and cultural landscape of the Islamic world. Think of it as a vibrant hub of creative energy, fueled by spiritual aspiration. And the poem itself wasn't just confined to religious circles. It seeped into the everyday life of people, inspiring artists, musicians, and everyday folks. Think of the impact of Rumi's words, translated and reinterpreted countless times, still resonating with millions across the globe. Centuries later, that's the power of the poem, its ability to transcend time and culture, to touch the human heart regardless of background or belief. So, the middle chapters of Islamic mysticism and poem aren't just about obscure theological debates. They're about a vibrant, dynamic, and often tumultuous period of spiritual exploration, artistic expression, and social change. It's a story of intense personal journeys, passionate love for the divine, and the enduring power of poe to express the inexpressible. It's a story that continues to inspire and resonate with us today, reminding us of the enduring human quest for meaning and connection. And honestly, that's a story worth exploring in far greater depth. We could talk about this for hours. Hey, so we've been talking about Islamic mysticism and poe, right? It's amazing how intertwined they are, isn't it? Like, you can't really understand one without the other. We've covered the early stuff, the Sufis, the whirling dervishes, but how did it all end? Well, that's a bit of a tricky question, because it didn't really end. It's more like it evolved, transformed, and continues to resonate even today. Think about it. Islamic mysticism, or Sufism, wasn't a monolithic movement. It wasn't one single organization with a board of directors and a clearly defined ending date. It was a diverse collection of spiritual paths, all aiming for a closer union with God, but expressing that yearning in incredibly different ways. Some were highly ritualistic, others were more bent on personal introspection. Some were fiercely orthodox, others more, let's say, creatively interpretive of religious essence. The poem, of course, reflected this diversity. Early Sufi poets like Rumi, oh my God, Rumi, used powerful metaphors and imagery to convey their ecstatic experiences of divine love. They weren't just writing pretty verses. They were communicating profound spiritual truths in a way that was accessible to people from all walks of life. Think of the sheer beauty of his poem, translating directly into feelings of longing and connection with the divine. He wasn't just talking about God. He was embodying the experience of being utterly consumed by God's love. And then you had poets like Hafiz, who used a more lyrical, almost playful style, weaving in elements of everyday life and human experience into their mystical verses. They weren't afraid to be ambiguous, to use irony, to hint at the mysteries of existence rather than spelling them out. That's where the magic lies, isn't it? The enigmatic and open to interpretation nature of the poems leaves the space for individual spiritual journey and experience. As we move further into history, you see the influence of Sufism spreading far beyond its origins in the Middle East. It reached into Africa, South Asia, and even parts of Europe. Each region added its own unique flavor, its own cultural expressions, to the mystical tradition. The poem evolved too, reflecting the local languages, musical traditions, and social cons. Now, you might expect some grand conclusion, a council declaring Sufism obsolete, a final poem summarizing everything, a massive bonfire of all the mystical s. But that's not how it happened. Instead, what you see is a gradual integration and assimilation. Sufism, particularly its poetic expressions, began to intertwine more deeply with mainstream Islamic thought and culture. It became less of a separate movement and more of a pervasive influence, a lens through which many Muslims viewed their faith. The Ottoman Empire, for example, played a huge role in this. While they maintained a strong sense of orthodoxy, they also patronized Sufi orders and incorporated Sufi aesthetics into courtly life and art. Think of the breathtaking mosques, the intricate calligraphy, the mesmerizing music, all influenced, at least in part, by the mystical traditions. However, things weren't always smooth sailing. Throughout its history, Sufism faced criticism from more conservative Islamic circles. Some viewed its ecstatic practices and mystical interpretations of scripture as heretical or potentially disruptive to the established religious order. There were periods of persecution, suppression, and even outright bans on certain Sufi orders. These conflicts weren't a conclusion, but rather an ongoing tension that shaped the evolution of Sufism. Even today, you'll find differing interpretations of Sufism. Some branches maintain strict adherence to traditional practices. Others have embraced more modern perspectives. And even some have incorporated elements of other spiritual traditions. The poem, similarly, continues to be written, translated, and studied, interpreted anew by each generation. It's a living tradition, constantly evolving, adapting, and inspiring. So, there's no neat and tidy conclusion to the story of Islamic mysticism and poem. It's more of an ongoing conversation, a vibrant tapes woven from threads of faith, passion, art, and human experience. It continues to speak to us, challenging us, inspiring us, and reminding us of the profound beauty and mystery of the divine. It's a story that continues to be written. Every time someone picks up a poem by Rumi, or Hafiz, or any of the countless other Sufi poets, and allows themselves to be transported by their words. It's a story that lives on, in every heart that seeks a deeper connection with the divine. That's probably the most beautiful conclusion of all, wouldn't you say? So, you're curious about Islamic mysticism and poem, and what it means for Muslims today? That's a fantastic question. It's a really rich area. And honestly, we could talk for hours. But let's to cover the basics and then dive into the relevance for us now. Think of it this way. Islamic history isn't just about conquering armies and grand empire. It's also deeply infused with a spiritual quest, a yearning to understand God, or Allah, on a personal, intimate level. That's where Sufism, the mystical tradition within Islam, comes in. Imagine it as a parallel track running alongside the more outwardly ed aspects of the religion. Sufism isn't a separate sect. It's more like a school of thought, a way of experiencing faith. And Poe became its primary language, its vehicle of expression. Why Poe? Because it allows for a beauty and depth that simple prose can't match. It can capture the inexpressible, the ecstatic moments of connection with the divine, the struggles of the soul on its journey towards God. Now, imagine these poets, many of them centuries ago, wrestling with the same questions we grapple with today. Questions like, how do I truly know God? Quote, how do I live a life of meaning and purpose? Quote, how do I overcome my own limitations and imperfections? They were deeply devout Muslims, fully committed to the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. Peace be upon him. But they sought a closer relationship with God, a more direct experience of His presence. Take Rumi, for instance, probably the most famous Sufi poet in the West. His poem is breathtaking, filled with metaphors and parables that speak to the human heart regardless of religious background. He talks about the longing for the beloved, a metaphor for God, the pain of separation, and the ultimate joy of reunion. He's not just talking about theological concepts. He's pouring out his soul, sharing his personal struggle and triumph. Reading Rumi feels like having a deeply personal conversation with a wise, compassionate friend. And then there's Hafiz, another giant in the field. His poem is more playful, often using wine and intoxication as metaphors for spiritual ecstasy, a way of expressing the overwhelming joy of connection with the divine. It's important to note that these metaphors shouldn't be taken literally. They are symbolic expressions of a profound spiritual experience. Sufi poem is rich in symbolism, using imagery from nature, love, and everyday life to point towards the spiritual reality. These poets weren't just writing for themselves, though they were writing for communities. They were guiding people on their spiritual paths, helping them understand the inner workings of their own souls. They used stories, parables, and vivid imagery to make complex spiritual concepts accessible to everyone, regardless of their level of education or intellectual sophistication. Their poem was used in gatherings, shared during Sufi rituals, passed down through generations. So, what does all this teach Muslims today? In essence, it teaches us a few crucial things. Firstly, it reminds us that faith isn't just about adherence to rules and rituals. It's about a deep, personal relationship with God. It's a journey, not a destination, and it's full of both joy and struggle. Sufi poem validates that struggle, makes it relatable, and shows us that even the most devout individuals experience doubt and hardship in their spiritual life. It's okay to question, to grapple, to stumble, it's all part of play. Secondly, it reminds us of the importance of inner transformation. Sufi poem emphasizes the need to purify the soul, to overcome our ego and our attachments to worldly things. It's a call to self-reflection, self-awareness, and inner growth. Reading these poems can be a powerful tool for introspection, helping us understand our own motivations, desires, and fears. Thirdly, it shows us the power of beauty and love as pathways to God. The emphasis on the beloved, on divine love, is central to Sufi thought. This love isn't just a romantic ideal. It's a powerful force that can transform our lives and connect us to something greater than ourselves. And the beauty of the poem itself becomes a vehicle for experiencing this love. Finally, it teaches us the importance of community and shared experience. Sufi poem wasn't meant to be read in isolation. It was meant to be shared, discussed, and interpreted within a community of seekers. Engaging with this poem today can help us reconnect with a sense of spiritual community, reminding us that we are not alone on our journeys. In conclusion, Islamic mysticism and poem offer a powerful and timeless message for Muslims today. It's a reminder that our faith is not just a set of doctrines but a living, breathing experience, a journey of the heart towards the divine. It's a message of love, struggle, transformation, and ultimately, hope. And it's a message that resonates just as powerfully today as it did centuries ago. So, next time you feel lost or confused in your spiritual journey, remember these poets, their struggles, and their beautiful words. They might just offer you some guidance and comfort. Goodbye. May Allah bless us all. That's our discussion for today.